Wednesday, November 24th, 2021, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So yeah, contrarian views, that's really important here on this channel. And today we're going to look at the real reasons behind the current troubles the Turkish lira is undergoing. Some would call it a collapse, of course, of the Turkish lira versus the US dollar versus gold. Yes, I am aware of all the economic conditions that people give in the mainstream media. Turkey has an inflation rate of 20%. Turkey recently, the central bank there, cut interest rates, but they're still at 15%. We're going to look at some things that I think are much more important, and it's to do much more with geopolitics, the strategic location of the Bosphorus Canal. We're going to look at what happened in Turkey in 2016. Probably many of you have forgotten. There was a coup attempt against Erdogan, the president of Turkey. We're also going to look at an article, and this is one of the reasons I'm looking into Turkey as well, because I've listened to a French journalist who's also an economist. He's been in Turkey this year, and he did a really good review on YouTube about what's going on in Turkey. Unfortunately, it's in French. Unfortunately, I do speak French, so I understand what he says. But there's also an article here that I'm going to reference, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it's a French business economist, monetarist, behaviorist, financial analyst, and he calls himself a contrarian, by the name of Jean-Pierre Chevalier. And he wrote an article entitled Turkey, Monetary Aggregates and Growth. And he references Pierre Yovanovitch. But before that, let's look at some data, economic data about Turkey. And my argument is that the situation in Turkey in terms of inflation, interest rates, balance of trade, it's not any worse than in Western Europe, in the UK, or in the US. Also, to do with the national debt, we're going to look at all this. So let's start right now. So the best way to look at the Turkish national debt is to go into the US debt clock, and then you can look at the world debt clock. And if you scroll down all the way to the end, Turkey is the last country on the list. Their public debt to GDP ratio, you would expect it to be like 300, seeing that the currency is collapsing. No, it's 39.5%. Just to give you an example, the US version, of course, is about 130%. They also give you here the external debt to GDP. It's 83.88%. So let's compare Turkey with some other major European countries or Western countries. So let's look at Spain. Their public debt to GDP is 129.68. Their external debt is almost 200%. Look at Portugal, 175% debt to GDP, 253% external debt. Even the Netherlands, their debt to GDP is 85%. Their external debt to GDP is 623%. Let's look at Greece, an old rival of Turkey, of course. Their public debt to GDP is 253%, and their external debt is 321. Let's look at Italy, 172.9 and 158. So you get the idea. Even the UK, of course, we have 115% debt to GDP and external debt of 330. So Yeah, you're looking at that, you'd say, well, the Turkish lira should be a healthy currency. Well, let's look at the balance of trade because a lot of countries, especially the UK and the US, are running huge trade deficits or balance of trade deficits. Well, I've got data here for Turkey for the last 10 years, and if anything, they have been improving their balance of trade. As you can see, it is negative, but it's improving. Let's look at the Turkey inflation rate. Yes, it is at 20% right now, but as you can see here, since the early part of the century, they pretty much got inflation under control. Of course, it's not as low as Western standards, but probably, again, they don't manipulate the data there, I would say. And it's interesting that inflation in Turkey started dropping right around the time that President Erdogan came to power. Ever since he's been in power, they've been able to keep inflation contained. It has popped up in the last few years, but we're going to look at the coup in Turkey as well and what's been happening since then. So Turkey interest rates, yes, Turkish interest rates haven't been as low, of course, as in the West, mainly because, yeah, they're not part of the club either. They're not part of this central banking idea of manipulating rates, I would say, and keeping them near zero, manipulating inflation. That's just my take on it. And as you can see, I saw an article in the mainstream. They give you a lot of, they spout a lot of rubbish, I think. They say, oh, Erdogan hates high interest rates. But ever since he came to power, inflation has come down. Interest rates have been relatively high, I would say. They're like between 5 and 10%, I would say. And I would say it's the West that hates high interest rates because we've got so much debt. Unlike Turkey, of course, they don't have that much debt, it seems. Yeah, right now it has come off. I think the central bank has cut rates down to 15%. Inflation is running at 20. So yeah, the negative real rate is -5, or the negative real rate is, yeah, -5. But let's just look at the US. We had 6.2 CPI. And many would argue, of course, that that's more like 15%, according to Shadow Stats. And Fed funds rate is at near zero. So the real rate in the US is more negative than in Turkey. The real rate in the UK, I would argue as well, is like north of -5, like in Turkey. They tell us that the CPI is 4.2, but they don't look at the RPI that's almost reaching 6, and it's probably manipulated. So yes, maybe the Turks manipulate their inflation rate, but it's not that bad compared. Their negative real rates are not that bad compared to ours. And this is the base rate, right? Because I think Turkish 10-year yields are probably even higher than that. I haven't looked at it. So the other thing that people are saying, and it could partly be true because the globalists, the people who run the central banks, the people in charge of the deep state, and I think those people are one and the same. They always try to kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. Yes, the bullion banks have a huge short position in gold. Gold is breaking out recently. We've got high inflation. The Federal Reserve is sitting on its hands. They're supposed to be fighting inflation, but we know, like I think it was Northman Trader said, President Biden's hired arsonists to put a fire out. That's what it means for the Fed to fight inflation. But yeah, some people are speculating that the globalists are forcing Turkey to sell some of their gold reserves to protect the lira. And when they sell their gold in the market, it helps the massive short positions that the bullion banks have, so they can cover those positions. That might be true. Again, I don't have any proof. We need to wait for when Turkey publishes its new gold reserves to see what happened there. Anyway, you'd also think that the Turkish lira, looking at all the data that I've showed you, would be a pretty decent currency. And Turkey has 393 metric tons of gold. Just to give you a comparison, the UK has 310. So it makes you wonder, how come the Turkish lira is falling so much, not just versus the dollar, but also the British pound. And guess how much of their foreign reserves their gold holdings are. Well, it's almost 21%. In the UK is 9%. It's very strange, isn't it? So now I'm going to come to the real reason why I think the Turkish lira is being attacked. Yes, it's being attacked. And it's geopolitical. It's political. The West doesn't like Erdogan. And why is that? Well, because even though Turkey is a member of NATO, Turkey has become much more independent. It's flexing its muscles. And you really need to read this article here from Jean-Pierre Chevalier. It's not in French. And this is what he says. Turkey monetary aggregates and growth. The French journalist Pierre Yovanovitch was amazed by the dynamism of Turkey, and he drew praise for the Turks. Yes, he was there this year. This is what Chevalier is saying. And he says, I present in this article the reasons for Turkey's economic success over the last few years. Growth is strong in Turkey thanks to its banks, which respect the prudential rules of indebtedness, and thanks to the central bank, which respects the accounting rules without making undue monetary creation. This article deals with Turkey's money supply and its aggregates. So I'm not going to go through it. You can read it and go through it if you want. But basically, he says that Turkey is running, their banking system is running a really tight ship compared, and he compares it to the EU, which isn't, right? But anyway, yes, and I think Turkey is flexing his muscles. It has been. Erdogan has gotten inflation lower. He's got growth going. And the West doesn't like that. They want Turkey to be like subservient. And here's where it gets really interesting. Many of you will probably remember that there was a coup attempt in 2016, in the summer of 2016 in Turkey. And there's a lot of speculation that the CIA was involved. Erdogan was able to put down that coup d'etat. I think it was touch and go. I think the West, the media was reporting that he was gone and everything. And they tried. And yes, I'm not going to go into details, but there is a lot of speculation. As you can see here, there's an article in the New York Times says, Turks can agree on one thing, US was behind failed coup. So I just Googled Turkey coup 2016 CIA involvement. And Reuters, of course, they're gonna, because Reuters is an arm of the globalists, Reuters news service. They talk about the coup and conspiracy theories. They acknowledge that Turkey arrests ex-CIA officer over suspected coup links. But the West, of course, is going to deny all that. And who was president in July 2016? Well, it was President Obama. Who is president now? His vice president. So just makes you wonder. And here's the geopolitical, geographic, strategic reason, and in my opinion is the biggest reason, is the Bosphorus Strait. And as you can see from this map here, the Bosphorus Strait is very important for access to the Black Sea, access to Crimea, which the Russians took over a few years ago. Yes, there was a referendum there, and we've seen recently a lot of U.S. naval activity in the Black Sea. And the interesting thing about the Bosphorus Strait is that it's there's an international treaty that rules the traffic through that strait. It's called the Montreux Convention regarding the regime of the straits. And it's an agreement from 1936, and Montreux, of course, is in Switzerland. And it gives Turkey control over the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits and regulates the transit of naval warships. The convention guarantees the free passage of civilian vessels in peacetime and restricts the passage of naval ships not belonging to Black Sea states. The terms of the convention have been a source of controversy over the years, most notably about the Soviet Union's military access to the Mediterranean Sea. So very important, the Bosphorus, and it's also very important for all the commercial merchant ship traffic, for world trade, for world commerce. There's a lot of traffic going through there. But what's interesting is that in the last few years, Turkey, under President Erdogan, is decided to build what's called the Istanbul Canal. And it's basically a replacement for the Bosphorus Strait. And it's pretty much parallel to the Bosphorus, as you can see here. And this is what Wikipedia says. The Istanbul Canal is a project for the artificial sea level waterway, which is planned by Turkey on East Thrace, connecting the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara, and thus the Aegean and Mediterranean seas. Istanbul Canal would bisect the current European side of Istanbul and thus form an island between Asia and Europe. The new waterway would bypass the current Bosphorus. The canal aims to minimize shipping traffic in the Bosphorus. It is projected to have a capacity of 160 vessels transit a day, similar to the current volume of traffic through the Bosphorus, where traffic congestion leaves ships queuing for days to transit the strait. Some analysts have speculated the main reason for the construction of the canal was to bypass the Montreux Convention, which limits the number of tonnage of warships from non-Black Sea powers that could enter the sea via the Bosphorus, as well as prohibiting tolls on traffic passing through it. In January 2018, Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim announced that Istanbul Canal would not be subject to the Montreux Convention. So there you go. I think it's one of the main reasons for what's going on here. So let's look at how this canal is coming along. So it says here on January 22nd, 2013, the Turkish government announced that research studies about the canal would commence in May 2013. In April 2013, the first stage of the Canal Istanbul project, which includes the construction of various networks, bridges and highways, commenced. By December 2019, construction had not yet commenced. President Erdogan indicated that a request for tender for the project would be published in early 2020. It says now in January 2020, the Environment and Urbanization Ministry approved the final version of Environmental Impact Assessment report. Construction work is scheduled to begin in mid-2021. The project is expected to take 7 years to complete. Yes, I think this Istanbul Canal project is very significant. So yeah, why is this new canal so significant? Well, because it gives Turkey a lot more power. It doesn't make it dependent on that Montreux agreement. It could allow, who knows, more Russian warships to go through there. And I think the West doesn't like that, because right now, under the Montreux Agreement for the Bosphorus Straits, there's still a lot of control from the West. There's more equality there, and it's all up in the air if you have another option, right? So yes, a lot of my conclusions about what's happening to the Turkish lira is speculation, but I think I've done a little more homework than most analysts out there who are just looking at inflation, and they say that Erdogan doesn't like high interest rates, even though rates there at 15%. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to it, and it's a geopolitical attack, in my opinion. The Americans did the same thing to the UK. I think back in 1957, when the UK and the French tried to stop Egypt from nationalizing the Suez Canal. Americans didn't like the fact that the UK and France acted without them knowing it, and they basically said, you stop, or either we're gonna attack the British pound. And when you have the reserve currency of the world, you can play around with other people's currencies, unfortunately. And just like the Federal Reserve helped the pound last year with swap lines, it can also hurt the Turkish lira if they want. And I think that's what's happening. The deep state failed to unseat Erdogan back in 2016 kinetically through a coup. Now they're trying to do it financially. That's my view. And we'll have to see if President Erdogan holds on or not. Am I defending any side here? No, I'm just giving you my view and from afar of what's going on. I'm not pro Erdogan or pro deep state or anything. I'm just observing. So with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's a very crisp, cold day again here. We have frost on the ground today. Billy and I have been for a walk, of course. It's 8:34 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold trading at $17.93. That's up about $4. The range has been $17.97 to $17.86. Spot silver is down about 2 cents at $23.62. I think we got down to like $23.20 yesterday, so it has rebounded from those lows quite substantially. The range overnight is $23.74 to $23.46. Dow futures down 20. NASDAQ futures down 1 point. S&P 500 is down 2. Yeah, I think the markets are going to be a lot quieter today. I think it's probably a half day today. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I think Friday as well is going to be another quiet day for U.S. markets. Markets in Europe are going to keep trading, of course. So to the currencies, sterling is unchanged, 133.80. Euro is down slightly, 112.37. The dollar is down 0.2 versus the yen, 114.94. Dollar is down slightly versus the yuan at 638.80. So let's have a quick look at the Turkish lira this morning. Well, actually, the dollar is down 2% versus the lira. It's all over the place, of course. $1 buys 12.50 now, 12.5 Turkish lira. I think yesterday the dollar rose to 13.5, which was a recent high. Just to show you how I think there's a lot more to it than just the inflation, the economics, the balance of trade. You can see that the Turkish lira is pretty stable from like 2009 to, let's say, 2014, 15. And it's only been like after 2016 here, when there was the coup, that the Turkish lira has been coming under attack. So let's look at the commodities then. We've got WTI crude. It's up 0.2%. It's almost back to 79. Yesterday, the U.S. administration announced they're going to release strategic reserves. And it looks like, yes, they're going to release 50 million barrels. And the U.S. consumes almost 20 million barrels a day. So it's almost, it's like a drop in the ocean. And they're not going to do it all at once. So I think whenever politicians announce they're selling something, it's probably the low for that commodity that they announced that they're selling. A little bit like Gordon Brown when he sold half this country's, the UK's reserves. Gold was at $250, and it hasn't been there since, of course. High-grade copper is up 0.2% at 444, and natural gas is down 0.5% at 502. And to finish off, a quick look at the Treasury market. Yes, it's going to get quiet the next few days because of Thanksgiving, but it's down 2 basis points here. The 10-year yield, we're at 165. We have seen Treasury yields spike up a little bit here in the last few days. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a great day, and for my US viewers, a great Thanksgiving weekend. Take care. Bye.